you all, would anyone like to ask a question? Would you accept questions?
Good things.
Over the years, we have elected people who said what we wanted to hear and got in there and did something altogether different through various means. And the laws that our Congress has passed has heaped bureaucrat upon bureaucrat upon bureaucrat on us. And they all do it in different directions. Is there any move, number one, is there any good method to put the thumbscrews to people that don't do what they're elected for? And the second question is there any move to get rid of any of the major departments?
Well, those are two different questions. The first one, I think we always, and we're fortunate in New Hampshire, right? Our terms of office are 2 years for a governor, for the state, the Senate, the House. So we have the power, we don't need really a recall. We have the power of an election and the ballot box to recall people. The party, however, is in a position, I think, that exerts some pressure, if it's well organized, on elected officials to make sure that they stand on this platform, that they work on the platform. Now, Ronald Reagan was quite correct when he said, if you agree with me 80% of the time, you should be with me. And so there'll be some things we'll disagree on, but largely we should be together. And so there needs to be that moral discipline, that leadership by the party as well as elected officials. As far as departments are concerned, absolutely we need to start tearing down departments and reorganizing government. And I use a couple of examples that I used, not so long ago, a few months ago actually. I ask myself the question, as I'm sure you have, when you really start to really examine what's happening in Washington, do you think there's any provision in the United States Constitution that calls on Washington to educate our children in our schools and our communities? Absolutely not. The U.S. Department of Education, since its inception, has only led to a deterioration of student performance. I trust the people in our cities and towns, or the teachers, the parents, to teach our kids, working with state officials. I don't want the Department of Education in New Hampshire to be a federal outpost, which is what it is. So I think we should eliminate the U.S. Department of Education, and let's not be bashful about that. People are starting to understand that we are laboring under great, infrastructure burdens imposed by that department. Let's look at different things we're doing in Washington and saying, is it constitutional? Can we afford it? Is it good policy? So there are a number of places we can look. In New Hampshire, the same thing. I'd be looking at all departments and seeing, is there a way to consolidate the various offices that we have right now in the state? And you know what? The union, for example, public unions, SEIU and all other unions, will fight changes, infrastructure changes, which is why we have a difficult time making fundamental changes. So let's remove that. Let's treat the professionals who work for the state, for the municipalities, as the professionals that they are. We are the taxpayers who pay for their salaries. They have nothing to fear, except good, responsible government. That's what we want. So there are some changes we definitely need to make. Thank you, Tom. Hi, Skip.
Question for you.
Are we live or just is this Memorex?
This will be Memorex.
Yeah, that's right.
The question is, you have put together the Granite Oath PAC.
Yes.
There's also other new PACs that are springing up,
Yes.
including Jennifer Horn's We the People.
Right.
Jack Kimball, before becoming GOP chair, had started the Granite State Patriots Liberty PAC, which Jerry DeLemus is now running. And there's a whole host of them. My question to you is, what is the differentiation between your PAC and all of these others? And you earlier mentioned the liberty and freedom type folks. Will your PAC be trying to help fund those kinds of folks as they start to make their runs the next cycle around?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of people are actually asking themselves, why do you have so many PACs? Well, I think, for one thing, the focus is a little different. Mine is really going to be on the presidential primary this cycle, and that's what we're going to be looking to educate our citizens on who want to participate with us, as well as advocating for certain issues. I certainly would welcome liberty-minded people and anyone who really wants to run on a conservative platform to work with us. But I sort of see the direction we're in as sort of like a ship, and each one of these PACs, if they're rowing in the same direction, is an oar, giving a little extra energy, reaching out to people who may not really feel at home with the Republican Party structure as it is, and for whatever reason. And it's a more intimate way to deal with each other. And so I think so long as we have people moving in the same direction, it's going to serve us well, and that's what I'm looking to do. And then it gives us an ability to do some educating on the website, comparing where the candidates are and the issues, doing some survey work and that sort of thing. So it's going to be, I think, helpful to us. But we all have our own little PACs, don't we? Our families, our friends and neighbors. We work together, we talk with each other, we reinforce each other's convictions, if you will, on conservative principles. And I think that's what these organizations will do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You said that you're going to support presidential candidates, and then you went on to talk about what else are you going to do with that money?
Well, whatever money we're able to raise will support candidates,
Yeah.
okay, at the state level as well, promote issues, for example.
Pro or con, or just what? I guess what I'm asking,
Yeah.
you're taking money from us, but I'm not sure that I know how you're going to be spending that money. And don't I have a right to have some?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. First of all, it costs money to maintain a website. It costs money to have these parties we're having, and so this is helpful to defray that. We'll want to do some survey work, I think, on issues. If the legislature passes a constitutional amendment, for example, on education funding, and fixes that problem, we'll want to get behind that. Those are the kinds of ways that we'd spend money to advocate on issues, and then to get involved with candidates too. Those help support them. I'm not into like setting any records in terms of fundraising, just enough money to be active and be effective, and to be able to communicate with people who want to be part of our team.
Hi, Ovide. Jean Lavin. I really appreciate you doing these meet the candidate nights. I was there for Rick Senatorial,
Oh, that's
and
great.
he's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to Mr. Palenti, and I hope that the weather is accommodating to that. It's
So
not
too.
looking too good, but
Well, we're hardy New Hampshire people.
yeah, I got 4-wheel drive. And I can't believe that. I believe that you're focusing on the folks that are mostly have conservative values, not necessarily. I mean, unfortunately, I was an independent forever, and the further left they go, the further right I go.
Welcome home.
And thank God I met Skip and Doug Lambert, and had a lot of help in local areas. And yeah, definitely. And I've been talking to as many 20-year-olds as I can,
Right.
trying to explain to them that this is their debt that they're going to have to carry. And now I'm gone. Now I'm 52, so it's like, you know, here goes the thought. I guess I have to believe that you're going to bring in all the conservative folk so that we can see who the best person is to support.
Yeah, I'm not applying any litmus tests. If Donald Trump wants to come to our home, we're happy to host him. He'd be interesting to talk to, wouldn't he? Just to watch the hair move.
Yeah.
It doesn't move.
It doesn't Any serious candidate who's got some credible chance of doing well in New Hampshire should be given our time of day. And I think that's true for all of us. You know, if it's Rudy Giuliani, who's not necessarily as conservative as I am on some of the issues, but he wants to come, we'll have him, and we'll invite people to meet him. And it may be a different group of folks who will come, but I think that's what we're
Donald Trump, he's polls better than anybody that's running.
Well, that's why I think Donald Trump is actually a legitimate chance, has a legitimate chance of doing well.
We have to
Get
be
the
now.
money
because
back in
we
him, too.
formed an exploratory committee today.
Yeah, did he do it today?
He did.
I didn't see that.
Yes.
So, you know, I think it's important and we have to view ourselves as sort of like ambassadors for this presidential primary process. We can't exclude people. We don't really want to apply litmus tests. We want to welcome all comers who are serious and give them a chance to meet us and to make their case to us, because that's the role of the New Hampshire primary voter. And the rest of the nation, they may dislike the fact that we go first, but they put a lot of weight on what we say. And I think this one, more than any in recent memory, is going to be very important. The other thing we need to do is make sure that this period of time we're in is going to be more like 1978 through 1980 and not like 1994 through 1996.
Yeah.
And why do I say that? One-term Democratic president in 1978 lost to Ronald Reagan in 1980 because we had a focused campaign, a focused mission, And we had some real issues that we were able to contrast with for the public. 1994, 1996, I don't know what happened to us. We got control of the Congress for the first time in 40 years, and we sort of lost our way. I think maybe because we weren't used to being in leadership. And we let Bill Clinton up from the mat, and he won re-election. This has got to be like 1978 through 1980, not 94 to 96. And that means we've got to stay focused.
I would like to give you an opportunity to further your communication. We've been distributed tickets to sell, but nobody's bought one yet. Would you like to be the first?
I'd be happy to. I'm planning to go. And in the old days, Ralph Rosen would send me faithfully. You know, we should almost call this the Ralph Rosen Memorial, boat trip on Lake Winnipesaukee, because he was always so vigilant. He'd call up, yes, I'll buy 2 tickets, and then get the checks. And he was very faithful about it. So you're going to have to pick up the slack. All of us are going to have to.
Yeah.
But you count me in, I'll be there. And I like the way it's going to be set up now. We're going to go from Wolfboro to
Laconia to Wolfboro,
Laconia and Wolfboro and back, so people only can be on for half the trip. They can.
Well, it's primarily going to be the candidates and the dignitaries who will give the option of half the trip.
Right.
I'm expecting that everybody else will want to stay
the whole
on the boat.
time. That's right. We were on last year the whole time. It was a lot of fun.
If they get off, they still gotta pay full price.
That's a lot of way late.
There you go.
Oh, but I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you yesterday in Barnstead, only because I thought your answer was the more important part of the whole thing. It wasn't the question, but yesterday when Ovide spoke to Barnstead Alton, I asked him, now that we've got the first 2 years of President Obama's administration, he was certainly very focused on his supermajority in the Senate or for a time, and railroaded a lot of things through. And in fact, when he campaigned for president, he talked about being bipartisan, that he was negotiating with the Republicans and Democrats alike, and he was going to make this it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful term for him. But it turned out that it wasn't quite that way. Well, now we've had the November election, and things have changed. The Congress, the House is now is Republicans now, and the Senate is Democrats, and so he knows that he's going to have to negotiate more, and has been, to the point where my concern is that the bloc of independents, the 40% bloc, is going to say, hey, they're going to forget about the first 2 years, and they're going to look at the second 2 years and go, this is wonderful. He's really doing what he said he was going to do. He's going to be negotiating and compromising and all of that. So my question to Ovide was, what are we going to have to do? What needs to be done to make sure that a lot of people aren't overwhelmed with his change of the way he operates for the second 2 years, the 2 most recent years before the election?
And the answer to the question, I think, is we have to continue to bring up issues and remind the voters what this person stands for. Barack Obama stands for command and control from Washington, and Obamacare is the best example, which is why we need to continue to sue the federal government and have that and it already has been ruled unconstitutional, right, by one court. Sadly, New Hampshire is not one of the plaintiff states because the governor of our state is a Democrat who fundamentally believes in the direction of this president. And John Lynch is a friend, and he's more moderate than other people might be. But you cannot be the governor of this state and allow the federal government to control health care like they're purporting to do. And so we need to continue to bring legislation up to repeal Obamacare, even though the House may pass it and it gets defeated in the Senate. Bring it forward. You know what? There's a lot to be said about bringing legislation forward that doesn't ultimately prevail. It helps to educate. It helps to at least develop a strategy legislatively that hopefully will have the support maybe the next Congress. But we've got to bring these issues forward. We cannot let him get away with changing who he is, because he's fundamentally a liberal progressive ideologue. And he'll be with command and control every day of the week if we let him. Don't let him escape who he is. So the Congress will have to do this, the presidential candidates will have to do this. And the one thing that disappoints me, I have to say, is that here we are, it's March. We're moving into mid-March, we don't have one presidential candidate who's announced, not a major one. If you believe that our nation is at risk, which it is, and there's a crisis, a national security crisis, an economic crisis, and a moral crisis, and you think you want to be the President of the United States, get in the ring now. Let's start. You've got to run like your hair's on fire. And if you don't have hair, your eyebrows. Okay? This is serious. This is serious work, and that's why I'm concerned that the presidential primary in New Hampshire is sort of slipping away, and we don't have the candidates starting to tee up these issues and really speaking eloquently.
It's all about the money.
It's about the money, but it's also about the passion and conviction. We need to hear that. And I think we're going to start hearing it now in the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping. And maybe with a broadcast of the GraniteGrok, we're going to start getting candidates who are going to start teeing it up. I heard the other night, I'll give them credit for this, Mitt Romney in Carroll County Saturday night talked about the Obama Misery Index. Thank you. All right, thank you. Let's start it. Because we need to show the people of the United States and in New Hampshire what is going on in Washington and why there are problems, and it is of their making, not ours. I mean, the progressives and the liberals, and they're not helping to change things. They're continuing to make things worse. Because in the end, they want us dependent on government. 35% of Americans are receiving some sort of federal aid or subsidy, whether it's unemployment benefits, welfare, participating with the states. 35%, Rush was all over this today, and he's absolutely right. They want more of us to be dependent on government. And that is just the wrong direction for us. We will never reclaim this country for the true principle, system that we want for our children and grandchildren if we don't act now. And if we don't start moving, like there is a crisis in the country, and there is, a political crisis.
Yep. I don't know. To me, it's been 2.5 generations of this whittling away.
Yes.
The government's here to help you. And we all know that's a lie.
Right, well, that's what I was saying at the very beginning. We have only ourselves to blame for
But
where
we've
we
got
are.
people so dependent
We've
on
acquiesced. Yeah.
government.
Yes.
Well, I'm entitled to that.
Right.
Why?
Right. And we're all fighting, like, we were seeing the people in Greece last year rioting because they were reducing their, I think, retirement benefits or whatever the benefits were. And we're going to see Wisconsin doing the same sort of thing. We need to go through this process, but we need to be vigilant about it. George?
Well, but I think I know the answer, but if the governor refuses to ask the Attorney General to sue on behalf of the sovereign state, why can't the legislature bring action against the federal government for what it's done is Obamacare?
My understanding, I haven't studied this, the Constitution of New Hampshire, George, to know as a matter of legal opinion, but my understanding is that the Attorney General, who's a constitutional officer, frankly, could act on his own. He doesn't need to take orders from the governor. So he's got an independent constitutional duty to represent the interests of the state of New Hampshire. He should be acting on his own, frankly. I don't think the legislature can sort of superimpose itself onto the governor and the Attorney General to force a lawsuit. That's their role. Any more than the court should be able to sit in judgment of the governor and the legislature over education or education funding, which it has.
The separation of powers is the issue.
The separation of powers should be the issue, yes. And I think
so you need to bring a public a recognition that the Attorney General is not acting on our behalf.
That's why I think the legislature should have a resolution,
I do too.
not a bill that purports to have the force of effective law. Yes, sir.
We did already pass that resolution.
Oh, you have, okay.
And there is a precedent of the legislature telling the Attorney General what to do on behalf of the people of New Hampshire dating back to the 1700s. It's been done a few times.
Okay.
So it isn't like plowing new ground. It's actually been done in the cases where told us. But that did pass a couple of weeks ago.
Good.
The House passed that resolution.
Well, I think that's important to make those kinds of statements, to be clear where we stand. Fran?
Thank you, Ovide. I think what you do is you starve the state. You refuse to give them any money to do it.
Yeah.
Let them not fight it, but when it comes to New Hampshire funding, you just don't fund it.
Did you see the state of Maine just got a
Yes.
blanket waiver?
Yes.
How come we're not asking for a waiver? Maybe we are.
We are.
That's where we are.
We are.
Because because, you know, this
They've given out how many
Obamacare is a
waivers
real
now?
problem. What's
Over
that?
And they've given out 79 waivers to all of it, to unions and states.
1,040.
It's crazy.
We need to be on top of this.
Go into it.
One very brief question, Ovide.
1,050.
Do you think that our governor and our president need to be reminded that the New Hampshire Constitution gives us the right to revolution?
Well, they should be reminded, but the revolution needs to be a peaceful one right now, okay? And that's why we need to assert ourselves and push back on the federal government as a state, and push back on our local elected officials if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's why I said earlier, we need to end the rule of the king of the dump. We need to stand up to that king and say, listen, you're not the king of the dump, you're the servant of the dump. Help me dump my stuff. Don't tell me like a king where to do it.
Other questions?
Can I just give you an example
Sure.
of how they ignore us? I sent a letter, email, I'm a big letter writer to all of our Congress people in our service, and I sent a letter saying, I said, open the oil fields, all of them, let's, stop depending on these people that hate us and want to kill us, can we please, and I got an answer from Jean Shaheen yesterday, and it said, I appreciate your letter about nuclear power. And I went, I've sent her a note saying, please don't send me any more form letters. And it's like, it's right there. I want to send it to you, Skip, so you can put it on the GraniteGrok. It's crazy.
But that's important
We're
for
ignored.
us to be heard, absolutely. And if we just sit on our hands, then we're gonna get what we deserve. And unfortunately, we've been sitting on our hands way too long. The last thing I would leave you with is this thought. It's a sad thought. In the last 16 years, we've had a Republican governor for only 2 years. Okay? In 2000, George Bush carried New Hampshire by how much? 7,000 votes out of 600,000 plus cast. If he had not won New Hampshire, we wouldn't have even been talking about Florida. He would not have been the President of the United States. We are a swing state. The only way we're going to assure that New Hampshire goes red in the presidential election is to have the strongest candidate at the top of the ticket for governor, and strong candidates all the way up and down on our ticket.
Who do you think's gonna run?
We had Gordon Humphrey was our Republican nominee, challenging Jean Shaheen in 2000, came within 5 points of beating her. Popular incumbent.
He said it's all right.
If you were not the head of, if you were not the Republican nominee, if we had somebody who was not going to be able to muster the kind of campaign he was able to muster, I fear that we would have lost New Hampshire. So we have a lot of work to do, not just from a federal perspective, but what we're doing here in New Hampshire. So I just leave you with that thought.
I think I'm a strong candidate in our midst.
I don't know, but we're going to have to work together to make sure we have the right person.
Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically speaking. God bless you. God bless America. God bless you.